I need some traction.
So up next, our next speaker is the Chief Strategy Officer of the analytics unicorn, Domo. And previously, he built Amazon AWS Enterprise and grew it to billions in revenue. Give it up for Jay Heglar.
Good morning. So the audience participation portion of the program starts now. So by a show of hands, raise your hand if you use data to drive your business today. Good portion. Keep your hands raised if you believe you've figured out how to use data to leverage your business today. Many less. So very happy to be here in front of you all today. Over the last 16 years, I've had the opportunity to work for 3 different companies that operate in a very fast growth environment. And so the discussion we're going to have today is really all about how can you use data to drive your business and make better decisions in the process. 2001, I started at Microsoft. Many of you would say Microsoft's not a fast growth company. However, in 2001, their enterprise business was not the stronghold that it is today. So over the course of the next 10 years, I had the opportunity to work with a business within the business that showed extraordinary scale very quickly. In 2010, I started to look around, and this thing started to bubble up called the cloud. I'm sure you've all heard of the cloud. Yes, the most marketed and over-marketed term presently today next to big data. And so 2011, I started out a startup within a big company called AWS. And for those of you who don't know, that's Amazon Web Services, which is a $10 billion plus part of Amazon today. 5 years after that, I was able to take an enterprise business that went from a size of people you could count on 2 hands to a business that was over $1 billion in just 5 short years. Exit October, and I joined this company called Domo. And as the introduction talked about, we are the analytics unicorn today. So what is Domo? So Domo is the world's largest analytics platform for business. And it's easy to say that, but how would we measure that? So currently today, we have customers that have put over 25 petabytes of data into our systems, over 100 trillion rows of data uploaded. So this is really key. Our founder, Josh James, who started our company, before Domo, he started a company called Omniture. Anybody ever heard of Omniture? An ad tech company that was bought by Adobe. And when he was CEO of that organization, he was frustrated constantly because he couldn't access data that he needed to run his business. He had to ask people questions that took him days or weeks to answer, and he simply wanted and knew that there was a better way to do so. So upon his exit from the Adobe acquisition, he created this company called Domo. We have over 1 million discrete data sources that have been ingesting the data into Domo. And so when I talk about some of these geeky numbers, what does that really mean? So to the layperson, if you don't understand petabytes and trillions of rows of data, our largest customer has a single data set. So one data set that if you stacked up all the rows in a spreadsheet, it would go around the Earth 2.4 times. So more simply said, a size of a spreadsheet that would be 66,000 miles long if you tabbed down. So we're talking about lots of data at extraordinary scale. So what does that all mean to you? So what Domo helps you do is really optimize your business in real time. Everybody's been leveraging data for many, many years. This is not a new industry. But what is new is the ability to leverage a cloud-delivered SaaS product like Domo in a way that helps you to get closer to your data to help you grow your business that much faster. We all operate in a real-time environment today. So the speed of the internet is really required for you to have the competitive advantage. Data comes from everywhere. So you have data sitting on your mobile devices today, trapped in spreadsheets on your desktop, many different applications that sit in the cloud, or even to on-prem data sources as well. The ability to ingest all of that data into a single platform is what will help you run the fastest and make the best decisions. So what Domo provides you is the ability to connect and ingest data from anywhere that you have that, to be able to conjoin all kinds of data. We have 450 plus native data connectors leveraged by APIs. You can bring multiple data sources together to then run them through our ETL engine and then visualize the results of that. So a very unique value proposition for you. And all of this is in the context of collaboration. So data is not good if it's hoarded. It's only great if it's democratized and leverages the power of your people. And of course, we live and operate in a world today that is mobile first. And so having the ability to do all of this is paramount to do it via your mobile device as well. So some things that I've learned over the time, these last 16 years, in these three fast growth companies I've talked about, wanted to provide you with some perspective on how I was able to grow some of these businesses. So here's some guiding principles that we'll talk about. And as you read these, you've probably seen some of this already today. So I've watched each one of the presentations so far, and everybody's dabbled around each one of these topics, which is really, as an audience member here, it's enlightening to see that all these different growth stories really have very similar topics. And then it's important to understand how do you take those principles and internalize those to fit in your culture, which is something that Jay talked about at the beginning. So the first one, hire builders. So this is a very Amazon thing, but something that is very core to how I operate the business today, which is it's important to hire people that have built something before, not just operated or executed. And where you all sit today, depending upon where you are in your journey as a company, it's important to recognize that it's different to have somebody who has the innate ability to actually build something versus be told to go do 1, 2, and 3. It's just different. And so it's really easy to say that I should go hire somebody with great experience from a big, large tech company, but you also have to recognize that they may not have the DNA or the experience to do something at times of struggle with limited resources and be that real, true pioneer, which I believe is very successful for a large and fast-growing company. Second one is highly curious, and I've seen this 3 times already today, which is find people that have the curious muscle, asking why. Why are we putting this product in front of the customer? What business problem does it solve? What are their competitive alternatives? What's the cost of them doing nothing? All of those types of questions come from the art of being, or the muscle of being curious. And so I've always looked for that when it comes to hiring the best people on your team. It produces the best results. Second one's being able to pivot. So one thing that's true is you're not always going to be right. So that leaves some times that you're going to be wrong. So being able to pivot is really the notion of not getting so ingrained in a single idea that you're so trapped in it that you can't pivot your business if the market or your customers tell you you need to do so. I'll use an example from Amazon. Did anybody ever hear the Fire Phone? Anybody buy a Fire Phone? Yeah, one. Doorstop today, or are you still using it? Yeah. So what I love, one of the things that Jeff Bezos said that I thought was just awesome about this idea of being able to pivot is when he was asked by analysts during an earnings call about the Fire Phone and just how much of a colossal failure it was, his response wasn't defensive. His response was, I can assure you, and I hope that we're working on even bigger failures right now. The reason why is they were able to experiment, learn from that, and move forward, but they also cut bait very quickly. They were not so tied to the idea of being a hardware provider from a mobile device that they couldn't quickly pivot, and then 2 short years later, they came out with this device called the Echo. So being able to pivot is a really big, important thing, especially when you talk about a fast growth company and how you're going to continue to grow your scale. Use data to make decisions. This is paramount to how my company operates. It's similar with Amazon, a very data-driven culture. And I use this analogy often. If you're a doctor that has, or a physician that has 50 years of experience, and 10 people come up with an ailment, quite clear that that physician might be able to say, I understand what's going on with you. We need to operate on you. Would you rather trust that physician's judgment based upon their experience and their gut? Or would you rather ask them for some extra data that says, take an x-ray, I'd like to see that the data shows that I actually need that as well? It's no different than how you would operate your business. And the final one's prioritization. You can't be everything to everybody. And you only have so many hours in the day. You don't want to burn your people out by working around the clock if you don't necessarily have to. I understand up to a product shipment, you sometimes have to do that. But prioritization is really putting your people in the best chance to be successful and have the highest impact on your company. And to do so, you need to put data to work. So understanding that many of you are founders of an organization, and you understand what your mission was and why you did something. But leveraging data, you can then understand what are the things that I need to be doing that the market will accept. So prioritization comes down to figuring out what is it that you do well. So why is it that your product is great? What's different about that in the market? Really understanding. So this is different than the traditional SWOT analysis of what is it you do well and what do your customers do well. But just really being honest with yourself that says this is our strength. And if you're not creating your product around what your strength is, then you may be fooling yourself. Outsource the rest, this has nothing to do with the outsource of people. This is outsource work functions. So SaaS applications are everywhere today, and they can literally solve any problem, and you've heard from 8 different ones today. And so what I mean by outsource the rest is if something is not in your core strength, if you aren't great at doing it, then go find somebody who is and bring them into your organization, because they're going to help you focus your valuable resources and time in places that you can add value and priority. Most of it is shipping your product rather than having people that operate some function that somebody else has already figured out. Can't be everything to everyone. I briefly touched on this, but this is, it's easy to get trapped in your own PR that says that you've got a product that is going to be great. Anybody on earth can use it. Because at the end of the day, that's not necessarily true. Even if anybody on earth can use it, doesn't mean everybody on earth is going to buy it. So by prioritizing your effort, then you're able to understand where are we going to have the biggest bang for our buck, both this year, next year, and the year after that. Defining who your customer is really important. If it's by segmentation, so if you want to call it SMB, corporate, enterprise, that would be one way to do so. If you want to do it by role, so our CMO is going to use my product, a CFO is going to use my product, sales and marketing, however it is. Just figure out what's the prioritization that works best for your product and your company, and make sure that you double down your efforts there. That's going to help you grow the fastest. You can always expand scope. So Jay started out the morning talking about how they started with a single product, and then they released each of these products from them to come. But they did start with one, they focused, and they were able to grow. All this leads to target. And who is it that's buying your software or your product, and making sure that you focus appropriately. The next one, and I'll dive into this a bit, is on trend spotting. So what I mean by trend spotting is really finding out what's the data underlying and how people are using your product, or why they're buying your product. And Jay talked about this at the beginning when he's talked about where they wiped off the whole lower portion of their sales efforts, people that I believe he said were under 10 users. So they identified the part of their user base that wasn't necessarily something that was a stronghold for them. And so they got rid of that revenue, and they moved on to focus their efforts up the ladder. And so by using data to trend spot, you can understand where it is you should and should not be focusing. So what you see here, this is actually Domo, the product. I have some dummy data, but I'll tell you a story about a customer of ours. On the x-axis, you've got number of users. On the y, you've got price. And what they had a problem understanding was, what's the appropriate mix where they had the greatest likelihood of a customer to renew versus attrit? And as you all know, especially in a SaaS world, if every percentage point that attrits, you have to make up then again on the new customers. So it just makes life that much harder. So just with this raw data on a very basic scatter plot, you can see it just doesn't tell me a whole lot. I've got a few outliers in there, so I need to drill down a little bit more. What you see on the left-hand side is an example of what failure for them was. Orange represents closed business, so people that left without renewing. Green represents those who decided to renew. This still isn't great enough because you can't really determine where should they focus. When they actually dove in one layer further, they were able to identify what you see on the right, a combination of price and how they would package their product, which led them to 93% renewal rate. So you could see just using data and understanding how to manipulate that data and interact with it and collaborate with it, you can come up with that sweet spot of really what is it that and how you're going to package and price your product, the difference between success and failure. So this is the example that I'll use of this particular customer. By understanding what that magic combination was for them, they were able to increase their retention by 19 points. And if you're able to do that, that means that you're going to grow that much further the next year. The company was able to react and fix the problem because they actually had access to what that problem was. It was less about gut, and it was more about the data that drove them to a decision that they were able to make because they were able to dive in, collaborate, and leverage the data. Data put them in a position to be successful, not just humans that are out there hoping that they could understand what the problem or where the areas of opportunity were, but the data actually drove them there. Further on that, the collaboration point is really important. So this is, again, some mock data from that we put together based upon a customer, but this is a part of your Domo experience as well. And the customer wanted to wanted us to help them understand how do they segment their customer base? How do they understand who they should be selling to? They had a thesis that suggested that it was by size of company, it was by industry, it was by user type, all those things. And so we helped them to put together, by using Domo, the ability to extend this type of power of the data-driven platform to their end users. So simply put, what you see here is they focused by a tier, and they did the metals-based tiering of platinum, gold, and silver. They had a different treatment that they provided for each of these customers, if it's through marketing or sales efforts, things that they would compensate their sales teams to go sell to people that they thought had the highest propensity to buy them. They also did it by industry. What's great about this is it helped them to also understand, so where are they selling today and historically based upon the segmentation that the newly found segmentation. And so what's shown here is where they thought that they were successful or where they believed going forward they could be successful was quite counter to where they've actually been successful historically. And so that was a great learning for them to understand, well, then they need to reconsider where is it that they're focusing their efforts. And they were able to do so collaborating with across the organization. So historically, people would, if they wanted to share some data, they would take an Excel spreadsheet, they'd send it in an email. The person who opened that would open this thing up. It's static, not dynamic. They're not able to see what the actual real time was, but it's time-stamped for the data when it was sent in an email. Has anybody ever seen that communication mechanism? While that was effective from a legacy world many years ago, it's not a modern way to do so. It's certainly not real time, and it doesn't provide you a rich end user experience that you expect today in a mobile world. So the new way to do that, and this is again from Domo, the new way to do this would be to simply to share with your colleague the insight that you found through data. As they open that up, what they're exposed is real-time data, not timestamp data. It's presented to them in an environment that they can interoperate with it. They're able to understand what the point you were trying to make. And so it's real-time versus something that's time-stamped in legacy. This is the new way that people work. From a sales perspective, as you think about your marketing engine and how do you fill your pipe and your sales funnel, one problem that's very common that we see from our customer base often is, how do I understand attribution? How do I know where my marketing dollars are best spent to fill that funnel all the way through conversion? How do I understand the cost of leads to closure? Many different metrics that you all live through every single day. And what we see our customers doing is using Domo as the tool to ingest all of those different data feeds to make rational decisions to understand where is it that they are losing people throughout the pipeline and where do they have their best conversion that they could then revert resources to help to grow those conversion rates. And this is a simple pictorial from Domo that you could see where they just categorized all the different places where they would lose people within the funnel so that they could weight those and understand where should they be abandoning those types of efforts and where they should be doubling down. So with that said, I'll close you on the final thought, which is leverage data in all ways, shapes, and forms. Your gut is great. It got you to where you are because you had an idea. Data will help you drive your business that much further, that much faster. And you can do so in a way that you use your resources to help build your product and advance your services differently than if you did so absent any data. So with that, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
I need some traction. You need some traction. Let's get some traction.